My wife cheated on me with our divorce lawyer, then claimed I stole $250, $0 from our joint account to hide her affair. Now she's suing me for half the house and our life savings, and I have no idea who to trust anymore. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife turned out to be nothing but a lying, cheating bitch. Honestly, the last few months have been a nightmare I couldn't have imagined. It all started with little things, her coming home late, acting secretive about her phone, and suddenly her attitude toward me shifted from loving to cold. I figured maybe she was stressed at work or just going through something, but deep down I knew something was off. The signs were there, but I didn't want to face the truth. Then one night I stumbled across her phone. I was just trying to check the Wi-Fi password, but her messages popped up on the screen. At first I thought it was some innocent chat, but as I scrolled, I saw texts that made my stomach turn. They weren't just friendly exchanges, they were explicit. She was telling someone her sex life was better than ever and how she couldn't wait to see him again. I froze. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I loved, the woman I'd built a life with, was cheating on me with our own divorce lawyer. I felt numb at first. How could she do this? Especially with someone we were paying to help us through our divorce, someone who was supposed to be neutral. It was like a slap in the face. I read through more messages and it got worse. She was bragging about how she was so good at hiding it and how she'd never get caught. Then I saw a picture, her in bed with him, smiling like they were the happiest couple in the world. I swear that moment was like my entire world crumbling in real time. My wife was cheating on me and with our lawyer. It was so sick, so twisted, I couldn't even process it. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I knew I needed proof. I started digging through her emails and bank statements. That's when I found it, evidence of her spending thousands on secret trips, private dinners, and even a hotel room in the city. And then I saw the worst part, a transfer of $250, $0 from our joint account to some shell company she set up. I couldn't believe it. She was stealing from us, hiding her affair, and lying to my face every step of the way. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, staring at the screen, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. The next morning, I called her out. I told her I knew everything. Her reaction. She snapped at me, called me paranoid, accused me of snooping. She said I was crazy, that I was just jealous because she was more successful than me. She even had the nerve to say I was imagining things, that I was trying to ruin her. But I wasn't going to be fooled anymore. I had hard proof. That's when everything started to unravel. She claimed she was just having an affair for fun, that it didn't mean anything and that I was just insecure. But I knew better. I knew she was lying, and I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. After that confrontation, I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. I couldn't believe the woman I married, the person I trusted with everything, was capable of this level of deception. All those years, all those promises turned out to be just lies. I was furious. How could she think she could get away with stealing our money and cheating on me? And the worst part, she was so dismissive of my feelings, like I was the one in the wrong. That's when I realized I had to do something, but I didn't know what. I was just trying to hold it together, trying to figure out if I was just overreacting or if I'd been blind all along. All I knew was, my life was about to change forever. After she dismissed my accusations and told me I was just paranoid, I knew I couldn't just stand there and accept her bullshit. I had to get real, get concrete. I started pulling together every piece of evidence I had, screenshots, bank statements, emails. I needed to be sure I wasn't losing my mind. It was clear she was trying to gaslight me, make me question what I saw, but I wasn't about to let her do that. The more I dug, the more I realized how deep this went. She was buying herself time, lying through her teeth, saying she was just having fun and it didn't mean anything. That's when I found the emails between her and the lawyer, Jacob. They were full of flirtatious comments, plans to meet up, and even talk about how she was going to hide everything from me. It was sickening. I couldn't believe I married someone who had been sleeping with my lawyer, someone I trusted to help us get through this mess. I spent days trying to process what I'd uncovered. I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I'd always thought was ambitious, a little bitchy, but I never thought she'd cheat on me with the person I was paying to help us divorce. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how she managed to hide this for so long. I thought about the money, too. Over the last few months, she'd been draining our joint account, thousands here, thousands there. I finally tracked it back to her secret trips, her secret accounts. She was laundering money, hiding her affair, and I had no clue. One night I decided I had enough. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I set up a hidden camera in our living room, something I never thought I'd do, and waited. Sure enough, I caught her sneaking out late at night, slipping into a hotel with Jacob. That was the final nail in the coffin. Seeing her with him, so confident, so unapologetic, it made me realize I'd been a fool. I trusted her with my life, my money, my future, and she'd been lying to my face the entire time. I confronted her the next morning, showing her the footage. She lost her temper, called me every name in the book, and told me I was crazy for spying. But I had proof. I told her I knew about her affair, the money she stole, and that I wasn't going to take it anymore. That's when she started crying fake tears, saying I was ruining everything and that she still loved me. But I knew better. Love doesn't cheat, steal, and lie. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I was walking around in a fog of betrayal. I was angry, crushed, and confused all at once. How could she do this? How could she throw away everything we'd built? I kept asking myself if I was just overreacting, if I'd missed some signs, but deep down, I knew I had been blind. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. I was furious at myself for not seeing it sooner. I kept replaying the moments when she was cold, distant, and secretive, trying to find clues I missed. But now all I could think about was how she destroyed our marriage, my trust, and my sense of security. I knew I had to make a choice. I could try to salvage what was left, fight for my rights, or walk away. Honestly, I was so overwhelmed with everything, her lies, the money, the betrayal, that I felt paralyzed. Part of me wanted to confront her publicly, expose her for the lying, cheating bitch she was. But I also knew I had to be smart. I started talking to a lawyer, gathering everything I had, proof of her affair, her financial manipulations, the stolen money. My plan was to fight for my rights, for my share of the house, and to make sure she didn't get away with everything. The whole situation was a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every time I thought I had a handle on it, something new came up, another lie, another betrayal. I realized I was no longer just fighting for my marriage. I was fighting to save what was left of my sanity. I couldn't trust her anymore, and I knew I had to protect myself. The betrayal cut so deep I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I was angry, hurt, and exhausted, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I was done being the fool. From now on, I was going to fight for what's mine, and I was never going to let her get away with this. After I gathered all the evidence, I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't just sit around waiting for her to spin more lies or try to manipulate the situation. I contacted a lawyer, someone I found through a referral from a friend who had been through something similar. His name was Mark, and from the first conversation I could tell he was sharp, straightforward, and no nonsense. I laid everything out: her affair with Jacob, the stolen money, her attempts to hide everything, and he listened carefully, asking detailed questions. His advice was clear. I needed to prepare for a legal fight because was already planning to sue me for half the house and the savings, claiming I stole $250, $0 from our joint account to cover up her affair. That part hit me like a punch to the gut. I had no idea she was planning to do that. I thought she'd just be angry, maybe try to spin some tailies, but her actually suing me, that was next level. I knew I had to build a solid case, and I started by pulling all the financial records, bank statements, emails, texts, everything. I also hired a private investigator, just in case she decided to get sneaky and do more hiding. I needed to know if she'd been up to anything else, maybe hiding assets, setting up more shell companies, or even trying to transfer more money out of our accounts. The more I dug, the angrier I got. She was so good at lying, so good at hiding her tracks, but I was determined not to let her get away with it. I remember sitting at my kitchen table one night, going through the bank statements and noticing a pattern. Every few weeks, She was transferring money into different accounts, all under different names. It was clear she'd been planning to hide her assets, and probably had been for months. I also found emails where she was bragging about how she'd outsmarted me and how she was going to walk away with everything. That was the moment I realized she didn't just cheat on me. She was actively trying to screw me over financially. I started to get a clearer picture of her game. She was trying to make me look like the bad guy, claiming I stole the money, but in reality, she was the one draining our account, hiding her affair and trying to cover her tracks. I knew I had to be strategic. I told Mark everything I knew, and he started drafting legal documents. We filed a motion for a temporary restraining order to freeze her accounts, just in case she tried to move more money or hide assets. I also demanded an audit of all our finances. She was trying to make me look guilty, but I had a feeling she'd been doing this for a while. While all this was happening, kept up her act. She pretended to be the victim, crying that I was ruining her reputation, that I was just jealous, and that she never did anything wrong. She threw herself into a frenzy of lies, claiming I was the one cheating, that I'd been unfaithful, and even that I was trying to steal from her. She was so bitchy and aggressive, I couldn't believe how far she'd go to save herself. She even hired her own lawyer, a shady guy named Todd, who was just as eager to fight dirty. It was like a game of chess, and I knew I had to stay 2 steps ahead. Meanwhile, I felt like I was losing my mind. The betrayal was so raw, so fresh. I kept waking up in the middle of the night, replaying everything. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see her sneaking around, didn't realize she was planning this whole scheme. I was angry at myself for trusting her, but I also realized I couldn't let her manipulate me anymore. I had to be strong, not just for me, but for the truth. I knew that once I had the legal backing, I could fight her claims and protect what's mine. Still, the emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and exhausted. But I also felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time: resolve. I wasn't going to let her ruin me, and I certainly wasn't going to let her walk away with half of everything we'd built. The legal process moved faster than I expected, and that's when things really started to heat up. Lawyer Todd was aggressive, trying to throw everything he could at me, claiming I was the one who stole the money, that I was unfit to hold any claim to the house or the savings. But I had the proof: bank statements, her emails, the private investigator's report. It was all stacking up against her. I could see her desperation growing. She was trying to spin lies, accuse me of everything she could think of, but I was ready for that. One afternoon, my lawyer scheduled a hearing. I remember sitting in the courtroom, feeling like I was about to go to war. The judge listened carefully to both sides, and I presented my evidence. Every email, every transaction, every piece of proof I had. Lawyer was trying to paint me as the villain, suggesting I was jealous, that I had something to hide, but I didn't care. I knew the truth, and I knew I had the facts on my side. When I kept it simple, straightforward, nothing fancy, just the facts. I told the judge about her affair with Jacob, the money she'd stolen, and how she'd been lying to everyone, including me. The judge didn't make a ruling that day, but I could tell she was taking everything seriously. She ordered a forensic audit of our finances and froze all of us accounts. That was a huge relief, because I knew she couldn't just transfer or hide any more money. I also filed for full custody of the house, because I didn't want her to get her hands on it or any more of our assets. Was furious, throwing tantrums in court, calling me names, claiming I was the one cheating and stealing. But I didn't care about her accusations anymore. I was focused on protecting myself and making sure she couldn't get away with her lies. Behind the scenes was trying to spin her narrative. She went on social media, claiming I was abusive, claiming I'd been unfaithful, trying to turn everyone against me. I knew she was desperate, that she was trying to save her own ass. I also found out she'd hired a private investigator of her own, probably trying to dig up dirt on me, but I wasn't worried. I had nothing to hide. I kept my head clear, stayed composed, and let my lawyer handle the dirty work. One thing that really hit me was the emotional toll. I felt betrayed in every way possible. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was a manipulative liar. She'd been planning this for months, maybe even longer. The thought that she'd been sleeping with Jacob, our lawyer, right under my nose made me feel sick. It was like a punch in the stomach every time I remembered her smiling, acting innocent, while she was secretly screwing everyone over. I felt rage, heartbreak, and a profound sense of loss. But at the same time, I knew I had to stay strong. I reminded myself that I was fighting for justice, for what was rightfully mine, and for my own sanity. In the midst of all this chaos, I started to see a pattern, was a master manipulator. She lied so convincingly, played the victim, and tried to make me look like the bad guy. But I wasn't going to fall for it anymore. I had evidence, I had a plan, and I was determined to see this through. I realized that her entire life was a lie, her career, her marriage, her facade of being the perfect wife. It was all crumbling around her, and honestly, part of me felt relief. I was finally exposing the truth, and I was going to fight tooth and nail to keep what's mine. The biggest challenge now was staying emotionally balanced. Every day brought new surprises, more lies, more accusations, more betrayals, but I refused to let her win. I knew that once this was over, I'd have a chance to rebuild. Maybe not with her, but for myself. I learned a hard lesson about trust, about how people can hide their true selves behind masks. And I learned that sometimes you have to fight dirty just to get to the truth. I'm still in the middle of it all, but I know one thing for sure. I'm not backing down, not this time. The court battles dragged on for months, and during that time I felt like I was living in some kind of war zone. Every day was a new fight. More lies, from more attempts to manipulate the system, more attempts to turn people against me. She was relentless, claiming I'd been unfaithful, accusing me of theft, and trying to make herself look like the victim. But I had enough evidence now to counter every lie she threw at me. The forensic audit confirmed her financial manipulations, and the judge took her attempts to hide assets seriously. I remember the day the judge finally made her ruling. It was like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. She ordered to pay back the stolen $250, $0, split the house and savings according to what was fair, and issued a restraining order preventing her from transferring any more assets. I felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. After all the chaos, I finally had some clarity. The judge saw through her lies, and I knew I had won, at least on paper, but wasn't done. She started to fight back even harder, filing counterclaims, trying to get full custody of the house, and suing me for half of everything, claiming I'd stolen the money, that I'd been abusive, and that I was trying to ruin her reputation. She even hired private investigators to dig up dirt on me, trying to find some scandal to use against me. I was furious. How could she be so vindictive? It was like she was determined to destroy me completely, even after everything she'd done. Despite her efforts, I stayed focused. I knew I had the truth on my side. I kept pushing forward with my lawyer, preparing for the next phase of the fight. I gathered more evidence, witness statements, more financial records, everything I could find that proved her deception. I also made sure to document her behavior, her late-night trips, her secret conversations, her attempts to manipulate the court. I wanted to be ready for whatever she threw at me next. Emotionally, I was wrecked. I'd gone through so much, trust broken, love betrayed, money stolen, and I felt like I was walking around in a fog. Every day was a struggle to keep it together. I'd cry sometimes, I'd get angry, but I knew I had to stay strong. I had to keep fighting. I couldn't let her win. Deep down, I felt a strange sense of clarity, an understanding that I'd been blinded by love, that I'd given her everything and she'd just taken it all for granted. Now I was taking it back, piece by piece. Looking back, I realized how much I underestimated her. Had always been bitchy, manipulative, and self-centered, but I thought she loved me. Turns out she loved herself more. Her lies, her schemes, they were all about getting what she wanted, no matter who she hurt. I've learned a lot from this experience. Trust is fragile, and people can hide their true selves behind a pretty face or a convincing lie. I also learned that sometimes you have to fight dirty just to get the truth out there. It's painful, but it's necessary. Now I'm in a better place, still healing, still trying to trust again, but with a stronger sense of who I am. I know I'll never forget what happened, but I'm determined not to let it define me. I've lost a lot: money, trust, a marriage, but I've gained clarity and a resolve I didn't have before. The betrayal cut deep, but it also made me realize what I'm capable of, standing up for myself, fighting for what's right, and coming out stronger on the other side. And honestly, that's the biggest lesson I could have asked for. After everything, I finally managed to get through the legal mess, but the emotional scars are still fresh. I look back now and realize how naive I was to trust so blindly. She was always bitchy, manipulative, and selfish, but I convinced myself that love could fix everything. Turns out, love doesn't mean you ignore the red flags, and it certainly doesn't mean you overlook the lies and betrayal of someone you thought was your partner for life. The aftermath has been a brutal lesson in human nature, how someone can hide who they really are behind a pretty face and a false smile. I've lost a lot. The money we worked so hard for, my sense of security, and the person I thought I knew. But I've also gained something else, an understanding of what it takes to fight for yourself when everything seems to be falling apart. I learned that sometimes you have to be ruthless in protecting your own interests, even if it means tearing down the illusions you once had. Now, I'm rebuilding my life piece by piece. I've started therapy to deal with the emotional trauma, and I've been working on trusting again, but more cautiously this time. I realize that not everyone is who they seem to be, and that's a hard lesson, but a necessary one. I've come to accept that I can't change the past or what did, but I can control my future. I can decide to move on stronger and wiser. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs sooner. Her secret trips, her dismissiveness, the way she always avoided real conversations about our future. But hindsight is always 20/20. What matters now is that I learned to listen to my gut, to trust myself more, and to never let anyone manipulate or betray me like this again. I want to warn others, if something feels off, don't ignore it. Trust your instincts and don't be afraid to fight for what's right, even if it means losing someone you once loved. In the end, I'm grateful for the clarity this nightmare has given me. I've been through hell, but I've come out on the other side with a stronger sense of who I am. This betrayal was a devastating blow, but it also woke me up. I now realize that real strength isn't just about defending yourself legally or financially. It's about knowing your worth, recognizing red flags early, and having the courage to walk away when someone proves they're not who they pretend to be. That's the real victory. And as hard as it's been, I wouldn't trade this experience for anything, because it's made me realize what truly matters: truth, integrity, and the resilience to rebuild from the ashes.